I mean, this speaks to the conflict Anista, you write about primitive America versus woke America, and you talked about a de facto civil war. And in the headline of the article, you mentioned the prospect of a new civil war. So, do you want to speak to that a bit?
I think it just goes back to the frustration with losing empire, and we're not handling it well. We haven't handled it well for 30 plus years. 50 if you want to go back to the Vietnam War defeat, because we restarted the Cold War after Vietnam. We thought it was going to be over with détente, and with Reagan, we kicked it up again. And then we were at a loss for an enemy in the 1990s. We didn't have an enemy, and yet we kept gearing up the surveillance state with the pre-Patriot Act type of thing under Clinton. The Democratic Party, which Reagan, you could say, had put an end to the New Deal era. So by the early 80s, that was over. But still, rhetorically, at some level, before Clinton and the DLC and people like Lieberman and Gore and so on, you could say that it was still the party of the working class. But after the end of the Cold War, it went over to being explicitly the party of meritocrats, which is really another name for a caste system and the new oligarchy, right? So you had this party which completely collapsed after the Cold War, and during the course of the 90s, it was going through this transformation. So there's no working class party in this country anymore, even rhetorically. I mean, this is not a left party, it's not even a liberal party, it's a center-right party, often going over to the right. And then you have the libertarians under Reagan who were still constrained by large majorities of the Democrats often, right? So they no longer have that constraint, and they go completely crazy, and they want to restart the empire in a vicious way, which they did under George Bush. So now you've got a really strange situation where you have this perception of unlimited, infinite power, which was the idea by, at the turn of the millennium. And what are we going to do with this infinite power? Well, we know what we did with that, right? We didn't handle that very well. We went around and started unnecessary wars. And the correlate to that domestically is you can't have, the point I keep coming back to it is that you can't have your shoes being checked at the airport every time you go there, and all this bullshit surveillance and kicking Alex Jones off of YouTube, et cetera, and have Medicare for all or student debt cancellation. I mean, these things don't compute. You can't have 8 super billionaires. Now they're going toward 200 billion and $250 billion, soon to be trillionaires maybe, right? And have universal health care. These things do not compute. So we have a democracy whose every institution, I think, has collapsed. It's completely collapsed. You can't, if you look at what Congress is doing, I mean, we talked about this basic stuff in the middle of a pandemic, right? We can't do student debt reprieve, forget student debt cancellation. We can't even do $10,000 of it. We can't even do $300 child tax credit. We can't even do 2 years of community college. We can't do any of those things. Woke America is completely on the side of the main carrier of the neoliberal virus, which is the Democratic Party. That's who they're aligned with. They're not aligned with the working class party or some independent movement. Same with Bernie Sanders and AOC and the Squad and so on. They're aligned with enabling and promoting the main carrier, the smart and efficient carrier of neoliberalism and this worldwide inequality, and the party and the ideology that's crushing cultural opposition around the world, whether it's East Asia, Japan, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Africa. It's crushing and has succeeded to a large part in crushing ideological and cultural opposition to this neoliberal ideology. So that's what woke America is part of, because they have their class interest completely aligned with this party. And on the other hand, you have, as a reaction to this, primitive America, which is really stupid, but I never blame them. And I don't blame them because I see the Democrats and the liberals who started identity politics. They're the ones who started, being anti-immigrant and punishing them. They're the ones who started censorship and what you can't say and can say. They're the ones who are in league with big tech, right? So that's the party that is so extreme that in this new caste system, you are either part of it, you join them, or your life is going to be unlivable and you're going to be dead. You're going to become sick, you'll become homeless. Something bad is going to happen to you if you don't go to the right schools. And once you go to the right schools, you say and think exactly like they want you to. Because if you don't, you are actually going to be dead, or your life is going to be curtailed, like you'll become unhealthy. Something bad is going to happen to you. In reaction to that is primitive America, which is the other side. And they're crazy because they want to kill elephants and and species, and we're just going to baby drill, or whatever the hell they want to do, because they want to go back to this ideal of being free in a very perverted kind of way. So they're trying to resurrect a libertarianism, which you could say as late as the 70s and 80s did exist in America to some extent. I mean, this was not a society as dominated by monopolies as it is now. So you could have, small businesses, entrepreneurship. You could say there was much more, and even class mobility, right? There was much more of a room for that. But this side wants to oppose everything that woke America is propounding and saying, we just want to deal, we don't want to deal with this stuff. We want to go back to the way things used to be, which explains Trump and MAGA, right? And so this is a complete standoff, and it's a standoff, and I call it a de facto civil war, because I don't see how you can possibly resolve this unless there's a crash, unless there's a complete crash, unless we lose all authority as an empire. Something much worse than Afghanistan happens, which is going to happen during the course of this decade. It is something so bad. If we can no longer even pretend to be an empire, then I think domestically we stop with some of the bullshit and the surveillance and the free speech and the arrogance. Then it's possible, perhaps not likely even then you start thinking about a more humane society, when this form of capitalism crashes. But as long as this is going strong and you have these two fake enemies, I mean, these are two fake enemies. Woke America is complete bullshit. Primitive America is complete bullshit. And those are your choices. And when you describe the election of 2024 to me, once again, what is that going to be? That's woke America, but they're all going to go with Biden, right? This asshole who didn't even give you a bit of student loan relief, didn't give you anything in terms of healthcare, didn't even give you a free test, didn't even mail you a test. Woke America, the 6-7 test, right?
He's sending a test now. He's sending a test now.
Now he's sending a test. We do have Q-tips and paper strips.
He got embarrassed into sending tests.
That's true. Oh, that's right. He is going to spend $1 billion and I don't know what happened to the 70 billion, but he's going to spend $1 billion. And I'm very grateful for the 1,000 military staff.
We're all getting a Q-tip, a vial of blue liquid, and a paper strip with an arrow on the bottom of it.
Right. So once again, it's going to be woke America going with Biden, primitive America goes with Trump. It's a complete standoff, and it's a fake standoff because there's nothing at stake there. I mean,
precisely. Now, yes.
Here's the thing is that 25, 30, 35 years have gone by. I've spent my entire life looking at this, and it's just getting more and more and more absurd each year. 2020 was pretty absurd. 2019 was, 2016 was, but 2021 was the most absurd of all because it's just going in this one direction of increased absurdity and this fake standoff. So it's not a real civil war as like what we had in the 1860s. It is a fake civil war, but it's no less real for all that. It's still real because you can see the consequences in terms of, let's just say the pandemic, real people getting sick and dying, right? That's a real consequence. Or when people go back, to paying student loans and are not able to afford having a good quality of life, once again, that's a real consequence. So it's a life and death thing, but it's a fake standoff, and I don't see any way of reconciling it unless you give up empire. Honestly, you can't have drone assassinations and torture and all the things that Obama was doing with his drones and killing people with complete authority to kill anybody in the world. And I think they were calling it like, the disposition matrix or whatever, which is like assassination or murder, which is like, prohibited by international law. But I think the word for that was disposition. So we're going to dispose of this person, right? Anybody, could be an American citizen, anybody in the world. You can't have that and have progress and reform of any kind. And what's interesting to me is, forget woke America, why is it that we have never, ever heard from them any demand, any need for, including Bernie, AOC, Scott, progressives, whatever third parties you can come up with, we have never heard from them truth, reconciliation, what happened under the Bush years with torture, detention, with Obama and drones, deportations, what's happened. Instead, they're going to the other extreme and saying, speech is violence, I don't want free speech. So this is a complete standoff, and it ends really, really, really badly. It does not end in a good way. And you could see signs all over the place in 2021. It seems like, I don't know if you probably agree with me, but it seems like 2021, many people, liberal, even if you were left, you kind of took it as a bit of a relief, saying, okay, well, at least Trump is gone. Maybe there's some breathing room. Maybe you can re-enter the political space and engage and see if maybe Biden might do.
Well, yeah, in the first 5-6 months.
Right,
yeah.
right.
But once the summer hit and it was clear that, they weren't going to get to 50 votes in the Senate, then, that burst that bubble fairly quickly.
Right. But what is the nature of this relief? What is the nature of our expectations? What should be our expectations? We've seen how 2021 went by, right?
Oh no, you're 100% right. I mean, that was one of the best monologues anybody's given in the 2.5-year tenure of this show. It certainly was. I'm not even joking. You nailed it when you said there are no real stakes. The only thing that's at stake is how we feel about these things. And that's why woke America feels a certain way about draconian measures at the border, and primitive America feels a different way. The kids are still in the cages. The difference is, do we act like we regret that under Obama and under Biden, or do we act like this is a price of doing business? Fuck it, this is what we have to do, represented under Trump. You're still going to have, like, COVID deaths are a perfect example, right? Under Trump, we thought it was terrible because all these people are dying, and the fucking president is saying, don't be afraid of it. Just we have to reopen by Easter and all this shit. And we're like, what the fuck? This guy is fucking out of his mind. He's going to get us all killed.
Right.
And then Biden takes over, and Biden says, more or less the right things: wear a mask, be careful, social distance, get vaccinated. And what happens? The same amount of people die. The same number of people die. And more people are going to die now. So what's the difference there? What's really at stake there? What's at stake there is not how many people die of COVID. What's at stake is, do we feel good about what our leaders are saying about COVID? And that's the culture war between, as you put it, primitive America, woke America. The same amount of people are dying. It's wreaking the same havoc. The question is, do we like the fact that we have a president who's telling us to all be safe and responsible, or do we hate the fact that the president is this maniac saying let her rip? Or on the other side, America says, well, if the same amount of people are going to die, do we like a president telling us how to act and what to do? Or do we want a guy like Donald Trump who's just going to say, live your life and whatever happens, happens? The difference is totally emotional. The difference
Right.
does not map onto material reality in any way. And it's like
Exactly.
that on issue after issue after issue, which is one
Right.
of the reasons why there is this de facto sort of civil war, this sort of cold cultural war, because nothing materially can change. And so if nothing materially can change, then there's no incentive for us to get along with each other and listen to each other. Like if our system actually worked, if it actually worked, and Manchin could be reasoned with, Sinema could be reasoned with, or on the GOP side of the aisle, Collins, Murkowski, right? All these Republican quote unquote mavericks, if they can be reasoned with, and we felt like, okay, we could actually get a human infrastructure bill passed, even if it's not what we on the left want, right? We could actually get something passed. Then there would be some incentive for us to listen to other people and get along with other people and try and broker a deal. But because no deal can be brokered, because the system is entirely broken by big money, right? Broken by a whole number of things. There's no incentive for us to hear each other and get along with each other. And they're all there because all that's at stake is how we feel about each other. And if we fucking hate each other, then why deny that? Why deny that we hate each other if there's no incentive for us to at least pretend to get along? Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe wherever you saw it, on YouTube, on Rumble, or on Facebook. We have channels on all three of those platforms. Also, consider helping us create more content by becoming a member at patreon.com/do-dissidents or on Facebook, where you can become a supporter right through our Facebook page and get bonus content every week, as well as call-in access to our live stream shows. Thank you very much for your continued support.